When it comes to adoption, the pregnant woman has many options. And so I will tell you an option, but I want you to know that if it strikes a tone of fear in you, that you need not worry, because options mean that there are other choices too. So the first thing I would say is that you can choose the family that would parent your child if you desire to do so. And if you do not desire to do so, or having a meeting like that or making that choice seems overwhelming to you, the agency can certainly do that for you. But the first step that we're going to take is we're going to ask you to talk about what's the ideal family going to be like? And then I'm going to ask you a harder question, and that'll be, what's your deal breaker? So for instance, some people may say, well, it would be ideal for me if the family were maybe at least 2 hours away from me, because I don't want to accidentally run into them. Maybe a deal breaker for some is that the mother must be at home and not working. These are just examples. Everybody's feelings about these things are vastly different. But I'm going to provide you some choices based on your ideal and your deal breakers, because I don't want to show you a family that doesn't meet your deal breaker item. Okay, so that would be the first step, is I would show you these families in a profile book. That's like just a photo album that has text and pictures, so you can get to know the family a little bit. And if you decide that there is a specific family that you'd like to learn more about, it's at that point that I would invite you to participate in a match meeting. That's a meeting that I would help conduct, where the potential adoptive couple would come and meet you, and we just get to know each other and have a conversation. And we can do that for as many couples as you feel necessary to interview. If you are not comfortable having that kind of a meeting, and that just seems a little overwhelming to you, that is not something that has to be done. It's just an option that you have. But ultimately, you are going to be in the driver's seat. You can make the decision about the family, or you could ask me to make the decision about the family. But I will tell you also that in those meetings with the families, and then a decision has to be made between this family or that family, it is not the obligation of the woman to have to tell the family that is not chosen. That's the job of the agency. So you don't need to have that worry on your shoulders. You just need to make sure that you're comfortable with the family that you're choosing to make a loving adoption plan with for your son or daughter. There are options when it comes to the location of the family that you want to choose. So for some, having them really nearby because they're planning to have an open relationship and want that opportunity for visits, absolutely that's something we can do. For others, it might be that their relationship is semi-open. They don't want an accidental run-in with the family somewhere and just the awkwardness of that. And so we are licensed in multiple states, therefore we can have adoptions that go across state lines, and we certainly can accommodate those things. We have multiple families who have adopted, who have a relationship with the birth mother or birth father or both, and sometimes even the extended family of the birth mother and birth father. It really depends upon what that birth mother and birth father are feeling, and do they want to have an ongoing relationship. That's one of the things that we talk about early on when we're choosing the family, so that we know we have a good match. And so if the birth mom can tell me a little bit about what she thinks she might want to have in the future, sometimes she knows right away, and sometimes we just need to keep that door open, because maybe today you don't know if you can handle seeing your child in the future and those adoptive parents, but having that door swung open and know that there's a possibility there of all the different ways we can design a relationship. So it could be that the relationship really goes through the agency, where pictures and letters are sent and requests for information and so forth. Or it could be that you want to have direct contact with the adoptive parents and with the child. We can accommodate those things, and would like to know what your ideas are about how that relationship could work. Absolutely, you can have more than one family option to explore. It really is up to the woman and her partner, if he's involved, to decide what's too much? And how much can I handle in terms of trying to make this decision? So we are happy to accommodate as much as is needed for that woman to feel that she has got the perfect choice. Many women will involve other trusted people in their decision-making process. Sometimes that's the father of the baby if they're still in a relationship. Sometimes that might be parents or just a best friend. But absolutely, a trusted person by that birth mom can be brought into the circle of helping to make that decision, because it can feel overwhelming to have so many families that want to adopt at your fingertips and kind of knowing what might be best. So most certainly a trusted person can be brought in, someone that you would like to have their opinion, and we'd be more than happy to accommodate that. One of the biggest concerns for women as they consider adoption is, how do they know that that child is going to be safe? And first, I can tell you that this, by state law, and certainly by policy of this agency, we do very thorough checks into the families that are considering adoption. So we're required to do background checks to make sure there's no child abuse charges. We even go back and check every state that they have lived in since they were age 18 to make sure of the safety of that child. But there are more things beyond just whether or not there's criminal activity, right? We need to know a little bit about their marriage. Are they doing well, or is this a situation that's stressed? We need to know about their extended family, because this child isn't going to just be adopted by a mom and a dad, but they have an extended family as well. And so knowing how they feel about adoption is very important, so that we feel that this child is going to be fully accepted into that clan, into that tribe. And so those things are also discussed. We talk about their finances. We talk about parenting and what kind of discipline that they would be using. And I can guarantee you they've gone through a very, very thorough analysis about whether or not they are safe and appropriate to have an adopted child live with them. So a closed adoption means that none of the parties know one another, nor have they met or do they know their names. So that means the adoptive parents have no idea who the birth mother is. The birth mother has no idea who the adoptive parents are. This would be the type of adoption that you might have heard about or thought about it if you thought about the 1950s, 60s, and 70s. Lots and lots of closed adoptions where everything was sort of secretive. And the adopted child might not even know that they're adopted. An open adoption, if you think of this as a spectrum, okay, an open adoption is over here. Wide open would certainly mean that the birth mother knows the names and phone numbers and the address of the adoptive parents. The adoptive parents know exactly how to get a hold of the birth mother and what her name is and all the information. Now, we can do something in between as well, which is semi-open, if you look at the spectrum here, it's going to be here in the middle. And that's where the agency is really getting involved as an intermediary. So you probably know each other's first names. You've probably met at the hospital. You might have met before that. But you don't necessarily have all of the contact information because the contact is going to go through the agency. And some people just feel more comfortable that way. So a lot of that's just going to be a decision about the birth mom and what she thinks might be best. The process for adoption is going to start with the decision-making, parenting or adoption. Then we move into do you want to make a decision about who the parents are? And if you want to go through that process, then we're going to look at profile books, eventually maybe have a match meeting, and then there'll be a choice, of who those parents are going to be. From there, there's relationship building between the adoptive parents and the birth mom, depending on how much relationship they want to have. All of that's going to look a little different. Eventually, we get to the point of the baby's going to be born, and so that's really where the placement activity begins. Is the baby needs to be born, and then 72 hours after that, you would be signing a release of custody, and that would be facilitated through an attorney that you do not pay for. And that attorney would represent you in making sure that your rights are understood. and we will petition the court. And the court has to give that approval for the termination of parental rights. That comes about 6 or 7 weeks after the baby has been born. And then from after the termination of parental rights, which is the first court procedure, there will be a time period where the child needs to be in the home of the adoptive parents for at least 6 months before the second court process happens, and that's the finalization of adoption. And during that time frame, that 6 months, the agency will be supervising the placement to make sure everything is going exactly as it should, and then we report to the court to let them know that we recommend the finalization of adoption. A really important factor when we're bringing birth mothers and birth fathers together with adoptive parents is the building of trust. So in the beginning, that trust relationship really starts with the adoptive parents having to trust the birth mother that when she says, I've made a decision, you're going to parent my child, they have to trust her that she's going to follow through with what she's going to do. Now, after that happens and the baby has been placed for adoption, that trust relationship really gets flip-flopped. And so now that birth mom has to trust that she's chosen the right people who are going to continue to do the things that they promised that they will do. We talk very carefully to adoptive parents about the fact that if they've made promises for things, that they need to keep those promises. But most state laws are not going to allow for a birth mom to try and undo a legal adoption based on the fact that she hasn't been able to see her child as often as she would have hoped. So we call this a gentleman's agreement. The problem is that we can't completely predict the future. So it may be, a situation where you felt that you might be able to see this child once a year, and then the adoptive parents got a transfer to Alaska, and all of a sudden that opportunity to see that child that often just isn't present any longer. And those are not things we can accommodate for. But I can absolutely tell you that our adoptive parents are trained to speak to you and to tell you what their truths are, which is they intend to stay in such and such a state. And as long as you continue to be safe, and that they absolutely want to have those visits and they're going to do those things. Pictures and updates can happen either directly with the adoptive parents sending directly to the birth parent, or indirectly through the agency. We even have times where the adoptive parents are sending those updates on, say, an annual basis, and they are sitting in a file waiting for the birth mother to come and retrieve them when she feels ready. That way I don't surprise you with an envelope and then, all of a sudden you're in an emotional state when you hadn't expected it. So we can plan those things in any way that it seems best for that specific birth mother. When it comes to contacting your child, it's going to depend upon the kind of relationship that you've set up. If it's a wide open relationship, then most certainly that contact early on is going to be through the adoptive parents or through the agency. Later, as the child ages and has their own opportunity to make connections, it's going to still be up to the parents to determine how much connection do they have. But most certainly, I think that would be a possibility of the future of how you can make your direct connection. Once they become adults, of course, then they can make their own decisions about their relationships and contact. One other important factor is on the legal side of things with contact, we do have our birth parents sign so that the court has a specific note from you. It's called an affidavit that says whether or not you want your identity to be revealed if that adopted person as an adult comes to the court and asks for it. Most often we have, they're called reveal affidavits, and that's most often what happens, but we will make sure that that is a part of your circumstances if that's what you would want to have happen. Here at Many Hearts, we're all about love, and I'm inviting you to reach out to us today and let us help you.